It's 3 in the morning. You're lying completely still. You can't see anything. You can't hear anything. You are, by every biological measure, the most vulnerable you will ever be in your entire life. Something large is moving in the darkness 12 feet away, and it looks at you. And then it walks away. Why? That question is what this video is about. And the answer involves evolutionary psychology, ancient group behavior, the specific way predators process risk, and one of the most quietly extraordinary things about being human that nobody ever talks about. Buckle up. This is stranger than it sounds. Let's start with the obvious question that nobody seems to ask. Why should a sleeping human be safe at all? Think about this from a lion's perspective for a moment, and I want you to really commit to this thought experiment. You are a lion. You are hungry. You are in the dark, which is your natural advantage. In front of you is a creature that cannot see in the dark, cannot smell you approaching because the wind is right, cannot hear you over its own breathing, is lying completely still, is unarmed, is soft, has no claws, no venom, no meaningful defensive capability whatsoever. This creature is, by any objective assessment, a free meal. It is an unattended packed lunch with legs. And yet you walk away. Why would you do that? Why would any predator do that? The answer is not what you think. And it is significantly more interesting than the answer you probably assumed, which was something vague about humans being scary or predators being cautious. They are not simply cautious. Predators are extraordinarily capable of overcoming caution when hunger is involved. No. The reason sleeping humans are largely left alone is far older, far stranger, and far more revealing about the relationship between our species and the rest of the animal kingdom than any simple explanation could capture. Here is the first thing you need to understand. Humans are not naturally prey. This sounds obvious, but it is genuinely not. Most animals that predators target evolved as prey animals. They have the physiology of prey, hooves instead of hands, eyes on the sides of their heads for wide-field predator detection, nervous systems calibrated for immediate flight response. Humans have none of these things. We have forward-facing eyes, which is a predator feature. We have hands capable of manipulation, which is a tool use feature. We have a gait that suggests confidence rather than flight. And we have a smell, an incredibly specific smell that predators have been learning about for a very, very long time. The human scent is not the scent of prey. It is the scent of something that has been associated, for hundreds of thousands of years, with the specific and deeply unpleasant experience of getting a spear through you. Predators that have been in proximity to humans for enough generations have, through entirely ordinary evolutionary pressure, developed a specific wariness around human scent that has nothing to do with the current human being, weak or strong, awake or asleep. The wariness is baked in. It is not a decision. It is a reflex. When a lion smells human, something in the ancient part of the lion's brain says this has historically been a bad idea, and the lion listens. Sleep doesn't change the smell. Sleep doesn't change the ancient alarm that human scent triggers in the predator nervous system. This is the first layer of the answer, but it is only the first layer. Because it doesn't fully explain the sleeping part. And the sleeping part is where it gets genuinely interesting. To understand why sleeping specifically is safer than you would expect, we need to go back a very long way. Let's go back about 2 million years to the African savanna, where our earliest ancestors were doing something that seems completely insane in retrospect. They were sleeping on the ground. Not in trees, like their primate cousins. Not in caves, like you might imagine. On the ground. Exposed, next to predators, every night. And they survived it well enough to eventually produce you, sitting wherever you are right now, watching this video. How? The answer is fire, and group sleeping, and something about human social behavior that changed the predator-prey dynamic in the African savanna in a way that echoes all the way into the present. Fire first. The control of fire, which our ancestors developed somewhere between 400,000 years and 1.5 million years ago, depending on which evidence you trust, is not primarily about cooking, though cooking was transformative. It was about the night. Fire changed the night. Before fire, the night belonged entirely to predators. They owned it. They were built for it. Excellent night vision, superior olfaction, speed and silence in darkness that diurnal humans simply could not match. Fire didn't change any of those things. What it did was this. It created a perimeter, a boundary of light and heat and smoke that predators, through repeated terrible experiences involving spears and fire and groups of angry humans, learned to associate with danger. The campfire was not just warmth. It was a signal that said, there are people here, they know you are there, and they have done this before. The campfire, burning through the night while humans slept, was essentially a continuous advertisement of human presence that predators read exactly as it was intended. This was not accidental. Humans maintained fires specifically because they knew what was in the dark. They were not naive about the risks of sleeping on the African ground. They were engineers. Terrible, vulnerable, clever engineers who figured out how to reshape the cost-benefit calculation of every predator in their ecosystem. But fire alone is not enough. Because fire goes out. Fire requires maintenance. Fire requires someone to be awake. And here is something genuinely fascinating that researchers studying both ancient human behavior and modern hunter-gatherer societies have noticed. Humans don't sleep the way we think they sleep. Or rather, humans in their natural state don't all sleep at the same time. The concept of everyone in the group going to sleep simultaneously and waking simultaneously is a relatively recent agricultural invention that has almost nothing to do with how our bodies actually work. In traditional societies, in hunter-gatherer communities studied across the 20th century, sleep was staggered. Not formally, not with assigned watch schedules like a military operation. Just naturally, different people in a group have different chronotypes. Some people are early sleepers and early wakers. Some people are night owls who are naturally awake at 2 and 3 in the morning. Some people have segmented sleep, waking naturally in the middle of the night for an hour or two before sleeping again. This is not insomnia. This is the original human sleep pattern. And the effect of all these different sleep chronotypes in a group of 20 to 50 people sleeping together, which is how our ancestors slept for hundreds of thousands of years, is that at any given point in the night, some percentage of the group was awake. Not on guard duty, just awake. And those awake people were talking quietly, tending the fire, moving around, producing, in other words, the unmistakable signals of human activity. Even in the depths of the night, even when most of the group was deeply asleep, the group never went entirely silent. The fire never went entirely out. And a predator approaching a human sleeping group at 3 in the morning wasn't approaching a dormant, vulnerable target. It was approaching a human group that happened to have some members sleeping. Which is a very different thing. Which is, in terms of predator risk assessment, a much more dangerous thing than it appears. Because the predator cannot know which humans are asleep and which are not. It cannot know whether the quiet movement it detects is a sleeping person shifting position or a person with a spear who has just noticed it. The uncertainty alone is often enough. Predators are not stupid. They understand risk, and a target where the risk level is genuinely unclear is almost always passed over in favor of a target where the risk level is known. Sleeping humans in groups are not safe because predators can tell they're asleep. Sleeping humans in groups are safe because predators cannot tell, with sufficient confidence, which ones are asleep. The group provides ambiguity. And ambiguity, for a predator calculating whether this meal is worth the potential injury, is functionally equivalent to danger. This is not a small thing. This is arguably one of the central evolutionary advantages of human sociality. The group is safer asleep than any individual is awake. Let's talk about the exceptions, because there are exceptions. And the exceptions are incredibly instructive. The famous Tsavo man-eaters, 2 lions that killed somewhere between 35 and 135 railway workers in Kenya in 1898, attacked people who were sleeping. The Champawat tiger, a Bengal tigress, who killed an estimated 436 people in Nepal and India in the early 1900s, attacked many of her victims at night. And what do these cases have in common? The victims were, in almost every case, sleeping alone or in very small groups, in unfamiliar territory, away from established human settlements without fire. They had none of the group protections that our ancestors built their survival strategy around. They were not demonstrating that sleeping humans are naturally easy prey. They were demonstrating that predators under extreme duress, with no other options, will overcome the usual risk calculations. Which tells you something important. The usual risk calculations are real. The usual wariness is real. It takes exceptional circumstances to override it. Now here's where it gets philosophically interesting. Because there is another layer to this story that sits beneath the evolutionary and the behavioral. It involves the specific way that human consciousness operates during sleep and what that communicates to other animals. This is going to sound strange, so stay with me. When humans are awake, we produce an enormous and continuous stream of behavioral signals. We make eye contact. We track moving objects. We orient our bodies toward sources of sound and potential threat. We have micro-expressions, tiny facial movements, that communicate attention and awareness and intention in ways that other animals, including predators, read constantly. A predator approaching a human who is awake immediately encounters this stream of signals. The human tracks it. The human's eyes move. The human's body orientation shifts. These signals communicate awareness, and awareness in a potential prey animal communicates the possibility of effective defense or escape. Even if the human is not strong enough to fight the predator, the fact that the human has noticed the predator changes the calculation. A prey animal that knows you are there might run. Running prey is energetically expensive to chase. A prey animal that knows you are there might call for help. Help arriving is dangerous. Awareness, in a potential prey animal, reduces the predator's advantage so significantly that it often makes the attack not worth it. Now, when a human is sleeping, none of this stream of signals is produced. The eyes don't track. The body doesn't orient. The face doesn't produce micro-expressions of awareness. And you might think this makes the sleeping human more vulnerable. And you would be wrong, because the absence of these signals doesn't communicate helplessness to a predator. It communicates something else. It communicates an absence of information. A sleeping human looks, to a predator, like a human whose current state is unknown. Is this creature genuinely unconscious or simply very still? Is there something wrong with it? Why is it so still? Predators are deeply, deeply averse to things that are behaving unusually. Sick animals, still animals, animals that don't respond to stimuli in expected ways. Because unusual behavior in potential prey is one of the strongest signals of a trap or a trick or a genuinely dangerous situation that evolution has trained predators to recognize. And a human lying completely still, not tracking, not orienting, not producing any of the usual signals of a living creature, produces in predators not the joy of easy prey, but a version of that ancient alarm that says something is off here. I don't know what this is. I will not find out the hard way. And the predator moves on. To be clear, this effect is not absolute. It is probabilistic. It works most of the time, not all of the time. It works better in groups than alone. It works better with fire than without. It works better in familiar human-occupied territory than in wilderness. But the fact that it works at all is remarkable. And the fact that it works as consistently as it does, across hundreds of thousands of years of human existence on a continent full of apex predators, says something profound about the specific kind of creature we are, and the specific niche we have carved out in the ecology of this planet. There is one more layer, the social layer, and this is the one that I think is most remarkable and least talked about. Humans, over the course of their evolutionary history, did something that no other primate did to anything like the same degree. They changed the behavior of other species through sustained, multi-generational cultural presence. Not just individual experience, not just learned fear of individual humans, sustained cultural transmission of the idea that humans are dangerous, and specifically that human spaces are dangerous, and that showing up in human spaces at night, when humans are sleeping, is a behavior that tends to end badly for the animal that tries it. The African savanna that our ancestors lived in for hundreds of thousands of years was not a static environment that they occupied passively. It was an environment that they actively shaped through their presence, their fire, their hunting, and their response to predators that came too close. Every time a predator approached a sleeping human group and was driven off by fire or spear, or the collective noise of 30 alarmed humans, that predator learned something. And more importantly, that predator's behavior shaped what succeeding generations of predators in that territory learned about humans. Not through genetics, through observed behavior. Through the cultural transmission of risk assessment that happens within animal communities as surely as it happens within human ones. Young lions learn from older lions what is prey and what is danger. Young leopards learn from their mothers which territories to avoid. And across hundreds of thousands of years of human occupation of the African savanna, the specific lesson that sleeping humans in groups, around fire, in established territories, represent danger rather than opportunity was transmitted through exactly this kind of cultural learning from one generation of predators to the next. We did not just evolve into a species that predators leave alone when sleeping. We train them, slowly, over an almost incomprehensible span of time. with fire and spears and the consistent message that this is not worth it. The predators on the African savanna tonight that walk past sleeping humans are not doing so because of some innate recognition of human superiority. They are doing so because their great-great-great-grandmother walked past sleeping humans and lived, and their great-great-great-grandmother who didn't walk past sleeping humans didn't. Natural selection and cultural learning working together across deep time to produce the specific outcome that you experience every night when you fall asleep and wake up alive. Which, if you think about it for even a second, is one of the more extraordinary things that has ever happened. Now here's where it lands on you, and this one is more personal than most. Every night you fall asleep. You become completely unconscious. You lose awareness of everything around you for 8 hours, give or take. And you trust, without consciously deciding to trust, that you will be fine. That trust is so deep, so fundamental, so automatic that you don't even experience it as trust. You experience it as nothing. But it is not nothing. It is the accumulated inheritance of hundreds of thousands of years of human beings sleeping in groups around fires and surviving. It is the product of evolutionary pressure and cultural transmission, and the specific social architecture our ancestors built specifically so that sleep could be safe. You sleep well when you sleep well because your ancestors were very good at being humans. They built the fires. They staggered their sleep schedules without anyone asking them to. They transmitted through hundreds of thousands of years of sustained presence the message that humans are not easy prey, not even when they're asleep, especially not when they're asleep together. And then they passed that down to you. Not as knowledge. You didn't learn it. It is simply the world you woke up into, shaped by people you will never know. The predators don't bother you when you sleep because your ancestors made them decide not to. That's it. That's the whole answer. It is simple enough to say in one sentence, and complex enough that it took 2 million years to build. And you get it for free, every night, without thinking about it. Which is, now that you know what it took to get here, kind of extraordinary. Sleep tight. The lion's already decided you're not worth it. Your ancestors made sure of that, a long time ago.